All right, so check this out. Can you sue a regular, everyday insurance company? Like they're a mob boss? It sounds totally made up, right? But it's a real and honestly a fascinating legal story. We're talking about NEIBEL versus Transworld, a case that completely changed the game for how we think about corporate lawsuits.
And that's the real puzzle here. I mean, it all kicked off with a simple insurance dispute, the kind of thing that could happen to literally anyone. But this thing didn't just quietly settle out of court. Oh no. It completely blew up into a massive federal case with accusations of racketeering. Yeah, you heard that right. The kind of stuff you'd expect to see in a gangster movie. So how on earth do we get from a boring insurance policy to a full-blown legal war?
Okay, so let's meet our main characters. On one side, you've got the NEIBEL family, and on the other, the Transworld Assurance Company. And right from the get-go, this has all the makings of a classic David versus Goliath story, A regular family who felt like they were getting a raw deal from a huge corporation.
Now, what makes this case so interesting isn't really about the nitty-gritty details of the insurance policy. Nope, it's all about what the NEIBELs did next. You see, they were convinced this wasn't just some clerical error or a simple misunderstanding. They truly believed they were the victims of a calculated, fraudulent scheme. So they didn't just file your standard, run-of-the-mill lawsuit. They decided to bring out the legal equivalent of a bazooka.
And this is where the story just takes a massive, dramatic turn. The NEIBEL's lawyers didn't just sue for the money they felt they were owed. They went a huge step further. They accused Transworld of racketeering, using this incredibly powerful and frankly notorious federal law that was never, ever designed for a corporate squabble.
That's right, the RICO Act. When you hear RICO, your mind probably jumps straight to mob bosses and criminal syndicates, and for good reason. That law was passed back in the 70s specifically to help dismantle organizations like the mafia. So to whip this out against a regular insurance company? I mean, that was an incredibly bold and super controversial move.
Okay, so to really get what they were doing, we need to zoom in on a specific part of this law, civil RICO. Now, while most of us know RICO as a criminal thing used by prosecutors, it has this other side to it. It actually allows private citizens, people like you and me, to sue for damages if they've been harmed by racketeering. And why is this such a big deal? Well, the stakes are massive. We're talking about getting triple damages. That's why it's such a powerful legal weapon.
So the law is officially aimed at criminal acts that are part of an ongoing criminal organization. And I really want you to focus on that word, ongoing. That's the whole ballgame right there. See, RICO isn't about punishing a single one-off crime. It's designed to take down the entire corrupt system, the whole enterprise that's making those crimes happen again and again.
So, if you want to win a civil RICO case, you've got a pretty steep hill to climb. There are 4 major hurdles you have to clear. First, you have to prove an enterprise existed. Then you got to show a pattern of illegal activity. Third, you have to prove that activity was racketeering. Now, for a business, this usually means stuff like mail fraud or wire fraud, basically using official channels to repeatedly commit fraud. And last, you have to show this whole pattern directly caused you financial harm. So yeah, it's a really high bar to clear.
Okay, so with all that in mind, let's get back to our story. The whole thing works its way up the legal ladder and lands right in front of the U.S. Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. And now, these judges have this huge question on their hands. Could the actions of a legitimate insurance company really be considered an ongoing criminal enterprise under the RICO Act? And this really frames the whole argument perfectly. On one side, you have the NEIBELs, who are basically saying, hey, this wasn't an accident. This is a deliberate, repeated pattern of fraud. And that forced the court to ask a really tough question. Was this pattern so baked into the company's DNA that their normal way of doing business was in fact criminal? And it all came down to that one single critical idea, continuity. It wasn't enough for the NEIBELs to say, look, they did some bad things. No, they had to prove that those acts were a threat that was going to continue long into the future, which would make the company itself a long-term criminal operation. So really, the entire massive case came down to this one simple question. Was Transworld just a regular business that made some bad calls, or was it something much darker? A criminal enterprise just pretending to be a normal company?
So the ruling from the Ninth Circuit in this case, well, it became what we call a landmark decision. It wasn't just about who won or lost this one lawsuit. No, it was way bigger than that. It set a really clear precedent, basically drawing a line in the sand for all future civil RICO cases. It helped define that blurry area between just plain old corporate misconduct and actual racketeering. So, what was the big takeaway from all this?
Well, the court's decision was kind of like a double-edged sword. On one hand, it confirmed that yes, a legitimate-looking business can absolutely be treated as a criminal enterprise under RICO. But, and this is a really big but, it also raised the bar for proving it. You now had to show a clear threat of long-term, continuous criminal activity. So it made winning these cases a lot harder, for sure. But it also made the rules of the game much, much clearer for everyone involved.
And that really leaves us with the critical question that this whole case put on the table. Where is the line between just being an aggressive, maybe even shady, business and being an actual criminal enterprise? The NEIBEL case forced the entire legal system to look that question square in the eye. And honestly, it's a line that courts and companies are still trying to navigate to this very day. It's just a powerful reminder that sometimes the biggest, most game-changing legal battles can start from the smallest of disagreements. Thanks for joining me for this.